Hey guys, Andy here, and today we have a video where if I could only keep 10 palettes in my collection and declutter everything else, let's say someone broke in and took them all, or there was an emergency and I had to leave with just 10 palettes. If I could only keep 10 in my collection, what would they be? That is what we are doing. This was originally created by Kate Mercy. I will leave her channel listed in the description box, as always. And yeah, if you want to see what 10 palettes I would keep in my collection, and I think I'm going to surprise you, then just stay tuned. As always, everything that is on my face today will be listed in the description box. And if you like makeup unboxings with a little bit of horror sprinkled in, even though I know I've been lacking in the horror department, let me know if you missed those videos. Then let's go ahead and just jump into today's video. Alright, so these are going to be in no particular order because I am not going to rank these, but I tried to pick palettes that would round out my collection. And I'm just going to start pulling. So this would be my Natasha Denona Sunset palette. One, I would want to keep this because this palette was pricey. I did get this half off, so I only spent $62, $65, something like that on that. But I love the quality on this. This is a beautiful red. This is a beautiful yellow. I'm not a huge neutral wearer, but I do like the array of neutrals in this. I think the shimmers in this are really beautiful. Just overall, I think this is a great palette, and I do really enjoy creating a sunset look, like a yellow, orange, red look. I used to have, my very first palette was the Profusion Sienna's palette, and that was basically the look I wore for like 2 or 3 years straight because it was the only palette I had. And it was just a yellow and orange with like, it wasn't an actual red, it was more like a dusty brick brown, but it was the same kind of premise as this palette. So this gives me all the feels. I hate this stupid thing, but I would keep this because one, it's beautiful, two, I spent a good chunk of money on it, and I just think it really rounds out my collection. And, you know, if I only had 10 palettes, I would need some neutrals, so I would keep that one. Next, we're going to have my, I think this is my newest. Out of everything that's sitting in front of me, this would be my most recent palette, but this is the Makeup of Murder Burner Phone palette. This is what she looks like. It's a pastel dream, and that is why I would keep this in my collection as one of my 10 palettes, because pastels, you never know when you're going to need it. And these, if you did not hear my spiel on this when I ragged on the Natasha Denona pastel palette, this is pastels done right. These are so pigmented, they are so blendable, the few shimmers in here are absolutely stunning. This palette is phenomenal. So if I want pastels, these are what I'm going to be reaching for, so I would definitely want to keep this in my arsenal for when I want a pastel look. Next, I know this is a little controversial, but I love this palette. It is my favorite green palette, and I love green eyeshadow. Green is probably it's a tie between green and purple being my favorite color to wear on my eyes. So this is the Jeffree Star Blood Money palette. I did get this secondhand, like I say in all my videos. Do with that what you will, but this is what the Blood Money palette looks like. Like I said, green is one of my favorite colors to wear. This is my favorite green palette that I have in my collection, hands down. I love the tones in this. I love just everything about this. So if I'm going to keep a palette specifically for greens, it's going to be this one. So this is what it looks like. I love it so very, very much. That would be my go-to green palette. So since we talked about greens, now we got to talk about purples. My favorite purple palette is my ColourPop Lilac You A Lot. I very much prefer this one over It's My Pleasure, and I do like the All Amethyst palette, but this one, the Lilac You A Lot, is hands down my favorite. And it's my favorite ColourPop palette. In my ranking last year, this ranked, I believe, #1. So I love the choice of mattes in here. This shimmer cloud is to die for, but just the shimmer selection, this is absolutely fantastic. I've almost hit pan in the shade Iffy, so this would be my purple palette that I would bring. Since we're on ColourPop, I'll just go with my other 2 palettes. I did pick 2 more ColourPop palettes. I picked for a blue option because I do enjoy blues, and this is one of my favorite blue palettes. This is the Blue Moon palette. As you can see, I have a wonderful pan in the shade Fine China. I love this shimmer Lumi, and the shade Billie Jean is such an interesting blue silver. I just love this arrangement, and this was one of my very first original ColourPop palettes, so I would just, if I'm going to keep a blue, this would be my blues. And then the last ColourPop in this little top 10 ranking would be the High Tide palette. And this one would be specifically because of this being a teal color story. This is so unique to my collection. These are like the only true teals / like turquoise that I have in my collection, and I love this palette so much. Again, like, normally I don't like the sequin shades, the mattes with glitter that ColourPop does, but I love this sequin shade. I love the shimmers that they did in here. This palette as a whole is phenomenal, and I would want to keep this because, again, it's just so unique to my collection that I feel like I would be really upset if I didn't have this palette anymore. So, let's see. Next, we're going to go with an all matte palette, which I picked this one because if I was going to travel, generally this would be my palette because then I could just pick like one single shadow, pick this, and I'm good to go. This is the Lash Step Matte About You palette. It is, like I said, all matte. And this is a drugstore palette, and it is so good. Like, these mattes are, sorry, it is hard to show you. These mattes are so buttery, so blendable. The white and the black are so pigmented for a white and a black matte, and they're really good for drugstore even. And I got this in clearance, so it's even better. But these are phenomenal, and I'm not usually an all matte palette type of person, but I have an ungodly amount of single shadows, so like I wanted to try this. And plus, like I said, if I was going to travel, this would be really nice to just bring this, grab a single shadow or two, and I'm out the door. So that's perfect. Next, we're going to go from drugstore to luxury. I would have to keep this because it's the only thing I own from Pat McGrath. This is last year's holiday palette. This is the Celestial Nirvana. I love the shimmers. The shimmers are absolutely stunning. The mattes are fine. I think Natasha Denona's mattes are better. To be fair, this is the only Pat McGrath palette I've ever tried, and I know that her holiday palettes aren't quite indicative of her normal formula, but I love the color story. I think the palette's phenomenal. It's also got a gigantic mirror, so if I only had 10 palettes, like, this would be perfect. I love this so much. I got this on my birthday last year through Influencer, and this has some sentimental value to me, and I love it. So I would be keeping that one. Another fun palette that I seem to always mention in these kind of videos, this is Delancey's Aurora Glow palette, and this one's just for super fun occasions. So this is a blacklight and UV palette. So the mattes glow under blacklight, and so do the glitters. And then all of the chunky glitters, like these ones that have the stars glow in the dark. So this is just a super fun one. Like, if you ever go out to a bar that is doing like a blacklight night, or like the bowling alley that has cosmic bowling and does a blacklight, this is just super fun to wear. If you're doing a crazy like Halloween look and you want to do something crazy, like, this is super fun to use. So I would want to keep this just because, like, this is a really good palette for what it is. I got this on Amazon for like $15. I link it all the time. It's in my link tree because For what I got it on Amazon just to try it because it was cheap. And it's really good quality for what it's worth, and it works. It does glow under black light, it glows in the dark. It does what you want it to do. So I would have to keep it because you never know when you're going to want something fun and crazy like that. And then my last palette, my number 10, which I'm sure if you know anything about what palettes I love, you could guess this. I would need to keep one giant mega palette, and of course I would want to keep my rainbow one. This is the Profusion Kaleidoscope palette. Let me open this baby up. This is what she looks like in all of her glory. She is rainbow. We have some cheek shades. These are all glitters. We have some neutrals. We have the rainbow. This gives me everything that I could want and more. I love this palette. I have tested every shade in this palette. And as I've said multiple times, the only shade that has ever given me trouble is this green fern. And it's just slightly patchy. It's still a workable shade. But this palette is phenomenal. If you like or are okay with big palettes, I highly recommend getting this. It is such a bang for your buck. And it is a good Profusion palette. If you like neutrals and the rainbow isn't your thing, I also have the Moonstone palette, which wouldn't make my top 10 because, again, neutrals aren't my thing, but I almost picked it. This is the Moonstone palette, if neutrals are more your thing. I highly recommend this one as well. It's just as great. But since I picked two other smaller neutral palettes, I figured I was safe, and this has a little bit of neutrals, so I was safe to pick the big rainbow guy. But those would be my 10 palettes. I feel like I covered all my bases on color and theming and sentimentality and what I would really miss and want if I had to, like, restart my collection. These aren't all necessarily my favorite tip-top palettes, but if I had to start my collection over and this is all I was left with, like, I would be okay for the time being. Like, I would be able to do such a wide variety of looks with these 10 palettes. Now, I have, I think, 176 single eyeshadows. Let me know in the comments if you guys would like to see a video of if I could only keep 10 of these guys. Because I feel like that would almost be a harder video than palettes. If you want to see what 10 single eyeshadows I would keep if I could only keep 10 of them, let me know in the comments down below because I would love to hear your feedback. Also, if you make this video, please let me know. I would love to see your content as well. What palettes would you keep? Would any of these make your top 10? I would love to hear it. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.